Okay.
Welcome.
Welcome, guys.
To We All Have Stuff.
Episode 1.
Episode 1 stuff is communication sucks.
Yeah. Communication is hard and it sucks.
We picked this topic first because a lot of people can relate to communication and how communication sucks.
Yeah. And I think it's for a lot of reasons where there's just pressure on like the way that you think you need to talk to someone to be received and validated, and it's scary, right?
Yeah.
So just, it's like such a prevalent issue where I feel like with everyone you feel like you need to communicate differently, right? Like your friends, you talk differently than your parents and people in your family and your circle. And
there's like business world, and then there's like I have to be a parent role, and then there's to my spouse and what I can say to my boss, and there's just so many different aspects of talking, communicating.
Right. Yeah. And honestly, what I'm hearing is that like the way that you talk to yourself also, right? Like that inner voice that you have is so muddled by like all these different voices that you have in your head talking to everyone, and like
I should talk to this person in this way.
And like am I kind to everyone? Am I kind to myself? Like just the way that you express your feelings and your thoughts, like it's hard and it sucks.
It sucks. And me and Gabby were talking, that's what we talked about earlier. We were saying like people think they're good at communicating.
Yeah.
And I hear that all the time in a lot of my sessions too. I'm like, I'm really good at communicating, and I used to think that too. Same. And I was like very, very, very much so wrong.
Yeah.
Communication, one has to go both ways,
right?
For it to be a conversation,
right?
Not just an argument or a fight, but also it has to express more than, hey, you do that. I told you to do that. It's demanding. It can come off as demanding. People don't perceive us in the way we want them to when we're not communicating healthily or appropriately, when we're just talking or speaking.
Right.
And I think a lot of people have this idea that they communicate really well, but there's not like emotional intelligence there. So a lot of even intellectual people think they're like, I'm really good at communicating, I'm really, really, really smart.
Yeah.
I always say like a lot of my most intellectual clients are usually my hardest because it's a different way that you're talking to somebody.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that they're like communicating effectively, and there are books about this, right? Like people write like how to communicate effectively. I think that's an actual title. You need to convey message and feeling and like motivations and thoughts, and like it's complicated just to have someone on the same level as you, not just like hearing the words that you're saying, but like understanding what you're trying to say, right? And I think that's what makes it really hard and like scary too, right? Like I can think offhand of like so many things that are easy for me to talk about and like things that are hard. And why are those things hard? Because you don't want to get hurt. You don't want to be rejected. You don't know if that other person is going to be able to put themselves in your shoes and like feel where you're coming from. Right. Yeah. So I totally get it. And I view myself as like someone who's educated, right? Like I think that I speak eloquently most of the time, but like you said, that doesn't mean that someone's gonna digest everything that you're saying and be like, oh, you sound like that should make sense to me. right? Maybe it doesn't, and it makes sense to what you're thinking in your head,
like
but
your own lens of something.
That's right. So I think like the way that you speak and the way you communicate are different things, and it's very like mixed up these days for people.
So go into that, because me and you talk about how you speak to somebody, and if you're listening versus hearing somebody, and people think they're the same, and
they're not. And I can tell you as a parent, this is the first time that it really hit me that those things are different. Like even as a therapist, like I never really understood that like there is a difference between you or someone else, you speaking at someone and just talking and talking and talking and unleashing everything that you want to say, versus having a message that you really want to be heard. And I think in like conversations with small humans, right? Like a lot of the day it's just like this constant stimulation of talk. And one of the things that like is hard to teach someone, especially like a young person, is like,
and adults can also be young
people. What are you
people.
trying to say? You know, are you trying to ask me for a snack, or are you trying to, like, what is the message here? Is it that you're having a tantrum because you have these unmet needs, or is it just like, Mom, I need a snack? Like, it's a very different message, right? Like this heavy emotional unleashing. And I feel like I do that too, like in my relationships, where there's a lot of things that I like want to say, and I have this whole message, I have this whole vision of all these things that we could talk about and what's weighing on my heart, but like what is the message? Like, I need connection. Yeah. Right? And to just be able to simplify so that someone is in tune with you and they're willing to be receptive to what you have to say. Yeah. Right?
And when you say receptive, that's one of the biggest words, right? Receptivity to somebody, which is, I really want to understand you. Right. So that's the main difference between I want to hear you. Right. And hearing to understand, not just listening to just be like, okay, you said that. Like, I was listening to you. Yeah. Which, okay, you listened. Yeah. Great. But did you actually understand my point of view? What I'm telling you. Yeah. Why I'm upset about this, why I'm frustrated. And that lingo is hard for all of us. Yeah. It's practicing it that's really difficult.
And I think, you know, it's hard also to give someone your full undivided attention and to parse out, like, is this really the underlying issue? Like, what are they trying to say? Yeah. And, you know, very often it's just like a very simple, I need this. Yeah. You know, and what I've learned also to do, and, you know, this may be helpful for some people, like in my therapy practices, I've always said, like, do you want me to listen to be a shoulder for you to unleash? Or do you want me to listen to give you an opinion? Do you want me to listen to give you advice?
My advice?
Because
some people don't want advice. Right. They just be like, I just need to get this
out. Just need you to sit there and have no reaction and just listen to what I'm saying. Is very different from be a sounding board. I don't want judgment, but I want you to digest what I'm saying and then give me your feelings about it. Yeah. Those are very different. Very different. Like, that can really change, like, your relationship with someone, too. Yeah. Because if, you know, like, I've had a hard day sometimes, and I'm like, listen, I don't want to hear what you have to say. I just want you to be there, let me get it off my chest, take a deep breath, and I can walk away and be happy. Yeah. Versus sometimes it's like, no, like, you have to hear me, and I need you to repeat it back to me that you understood what I'm saying. And, like, those needs are very different, too. Yeah. So, like, those are very nuanced things, and, like, we are terrible at that. People are terrible.
Terrible. Even, oh my gosh, even me, like, when I think about sometimes I don't even know what I need. Yeah. Right? And that's what I tell my clients, like, no, I don't innately just know my needs all the time. I'm like, I'm really frustrated. I know what I'm feeling, but I don't understand them yet, so how am I supposed to tell you? Right. Because I don't even know, like, you had said something, and I forget the general exact verbiage, but it's more so you have to know why you're feeling it, right? When there's like, okay, I'm going to communicate. If you don't know if you're wanting that other person, like, I don't know if I want you to give me advice. Right. But it's hard on the other side too. I think that's what a lot of people are getting, I would say, I don't like to use right, wrong, good or bad, but like wrong or a little bit off of, like, it takes work on the other end to say, you ask me, hey, Alessia, can you just listen to me and you tell me this big story? And I'm like, but I want, like, I'm upset. I'm upset. I have feedback for you because I'm upset. You're upset. And I think I have the solution, but there's not always a solution, right? If the solution for you is, I just need heard and I just want you to listen to me. And I'm like over here like, but Gabby, this is what I would do. Why don't you just do that? I know what you should do. And then that's what puts people in this disconnect with each other. Cause it's like, cool, I know what you would do. Like, there's that frustration because you know you're not getting that need met. And it's like, you see couples do that. You see family members do that. You see kids do that, right? It's like, tell me what you need. That's hard. Yeah. You know? The communication aspect of that, I think, I know is very hard that we're all always learning and always struggling with. Yeah. And honestly, it's really, like, useful to see communication as, like, a conversation because it brings that, like, two-directional nature where, like, I feel like people get stuck these days and, like, I say my piece and I'm entitled to that, right? And you just have to sit there and take it. I'm guilty of it. I mean, sometimes I'm just like, I have all these thoughts in my head, you know, like, so much to say, and you're
a wonderful sounding board, right? And I know like I'm cared for and it's a safe space, but like that doesn't mean that I should just be entitled to talk at you,
dump on you every day,
right? All the time, and not be like, was that too much? Was that a lot? Like, can you give me your thoughts? Because like that's not fair to like make other people your dumping ground either. And that's just so hard. Yeah. Like, it's not only about like this one-way street of like, okay, well, it's off my chest, so it's done.
Yeah.
You know, it's not, because like the other person is going to have sometimes a visceral reaction to like, that was so much.
Yeah.
You know, or like even the other day, like we were voice texting back at each other and I had something like super important I just like had to get out, and I was like, listen, I'm sorry. Like, I am not trying to like steal your thunder because you're sharing really important stuff too, but you know, again, like in that moment I was like, you know, I have limited time, I have a lot to say, like this is my chance.
But let me just get it out there.
Let me get it out. I will circle back to what you have to say. But like in later that day I was like, yeah, you know, like we were both sharing important stuff, and like, or did we overshadow each other? Like, I don't think so.
But we also have that lingo where, if it did happen, we'd be able to say it.
Yeah, like,
which is hard.
Well, it is hard, you know, and like, but we have years and years of a relationship.
Yeah.
And not everybody has that, which is tricky. You know, you want to establish trust, you want to establish relationships with people, and like, it can't always be, how long have we known each other? Like 10 years. That's a long time.
Yeah.
Where like, you know, we haven't really even had like a fight.
Yeah.
In all those years, and like that is not common for people to have like a safe relationship like that. So like, I feel like I could unleash on you, and you'd be like, okay, like I have a lot on my plate right now, like I'll get back to you.
I love you.
Yeah, I love you, but like we'll circle back to this.
And it's, you know, that's the important part too, because we know each other. There's a safety, right? So that's why it's hard to do in new relationships, or with an intimate partner. It's different than friendships, which is, again, those roles we talk about. Yeah. But I also know we're close enough where if I told you I love you, but like I don't have emotional capacity for this, like today, but like maybe on the weekend, you're not going to take it personal. Exactly. Which a lot of times that is why people don't talk, right? It's like, well, I'm not going to tell Gabby that it was too much for me, because then what if she gets mad at me, and what if she doesn't talk to me, and then all those what ifs down the line, anxiety thoughts are there. So then it's like, okay, I'll just keep being Gabby's dumping ground, and then what's it actually going to do? Make our friendship dissipate.
Right, exactly.
Because I actually am like, no, I'm just her dumping ground, but it's my job to tell you that, but I don't have the lingo, so then I'm not going to tell you. Right. I think that's the whole communication thing is that.
Yeah. And so I think like there are a couple of factors that are like making communicating with other people hard. And it's like high risk relationships, right? Like intimate relationships, marriages, relationships with family, with, you know, kids, with bosses. Like there's a lot at stake if you were to communicate something that someone's not receptive to.
Well, I also those things that you said, when you even said high risk, my first thought was, okay, how are we defining high risk, right? And the 4 things you said, because I was curious, what is she going to say right now? Is intimate relationships, usually people are like, I don't want to lose this person. Right, exactly. As much as friendships don't either, but it's a different line, right? When you're married to somebody, like if I say something and they get upset, if somebody's worried about abandonment, or like, is this going to be over if I bring up this big thing? Are we going to have so much conflict? Are we going to get through it? Right. Nope, I want to stay in the safe zone. Exactly. We're avoiding conflict. Yeah. Intimacy, but with your kids, like especially adult kids, it's like, I want to have a good relationship with my kid. Kids are like, I don't want my parents not to be proud. I don't want my parents to be mad at what I'm doing. I don't want them disappointed in it. So you're worried about that. Yeah. I hear the job stuff's hard too, because it's like, if I say this to my boss because I know I deserve respect, am I going to, and I'll be out of a job? Am I going to lose money?
Exactly.
It's like, it's scary. Yeah. Those are scary conversations. So people avoid communication because of those high risk.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, you know, that's part of it. And then just like feeling emotional safety, right? Like I mean, we use ourselves a lot because obviously we're doing this together and we're talking about it, but like to have someone that you know is not going to abandon you, or just say like, you know what, this is not something that I have space for right now. I will come back to you, and I promise that I will, and remind me if I don't.
That part, remind me.
Yeah, which is hard to do because you're like, oh, I don't want to feel like a burden, right? But sometimes is it easier to just like let it go. Was it really that important? It was 2 days ago, but it's not really that.
And it will recircle again
is.
eventually.
Yeah, right. You know, but it is. And like, sometimes it's easier to just let it go because, oh, maybe I actually didn't want to talk to that person about that thing. You know? That's hard. So, you know, there's just like so much that just goes into having like a nice, effective conversation. There's no recipe.
Yeah.
Which makes it really hard. You know, like how much is at stake? What's the value of that person to you? You know? So, like, where do you start teaching someone how to communicate effectively? And it's not just like an ends to a means, right? But you have to start somewhere.
I always say starting will be, what is that? Sorry, I got something going on. Okay. I just thought it was like something ending on this. My bad.
Oh, no.
When we talk about like where do you start,
Yeah.
it always has to be with you.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think it always starts with the other people.
No, yeah.
Like, if we're so focused on the other person, we cannot control the other person. Therefore, I'm like, we're gonna get nowhere.
Yeah.
Right? So if I can say I would say start with your own why before I go to communicate with somebody. I'm like, why do I even want to have this conversation? Like, why is it important to me?
Yeah.
What do I want this? Where do I want this to go? What I want this person to hear or listen to from me? And that helps me start getting dialogue, I would say.
Yeah.
Like, hey, Gabby, I want to have this conversation with you.
Yeah.
Because the other day, I was super upset with you, and I can't get over it.
Yeah.
Like, it keeps bothering me. And every time I see you, I'm upset with you, and I don't want that feeling every time I hang out with you, but I got to get it out.
Right.
But now I know my intention.
Yeah.
Right? I know, and you're aware of like, okay, she doesn't want conflict. To feel that when she's with me. And not even say like, maybe I don't want conflict. I'm okay going into conflict with you.
Right.
Because I don't want every time I see you to have this build up of like, I'm still mad about that thing she did last month.
Right, yeah.
But if we don't, it's going to keep happening.
Exactly.
If I don't have that conversation, eventually I think it's going to go away, but it never does.
It never does, yeah.
People love to sweep it under the rug.
Right.
That's not going to work.
And see, like, just to show how important this is, like, the fact that you say that, right? Like, you just continue to sweep it under the rug, but, like, the more crumbs you sweep under the rug, the harder, easier it is to trip, you know? Like,
well, I always say that in, like, I always teach this weird thing in my sessions of, like, there's these voices, which this is like a lot of annoying things that I'm not going to go in depth with, but like every time you follow a voice, which a voice leads you away from like your soul, which is what you want to do. Like, I want to talk to Gabby, but what if she gets mad at me? So I'm going to keep it to myself.
Yeah.
We store all this emotion in our body every time we follow one of those. So it's like, I'm not going to talk to her. Oh, I'm upset with my man, but he's had a hard day. So let me just figure it out by myself. Boom. Right. Every time you're following those, you build up.
Right.
And then you
have no capacity for anything else.
No capacity. And that's when people do that exploding, or I'm not communicating, so I'm going to react. Yeah. I'm going to do something impulsive. Right. I'm going to scream at you. I'm going to hit a wall. I'm going to do all this bizarre behavior because it comes out in bad behavior. Right. Instead of like, hold on, let me just learn how to communicate and say what's on my chest, what I'm feeling about stuff, because it will keep circling around. Because then once it goes out, once I yell at you, I'm like, Gabby, whatever, but we get in a fight.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to communicate, then you're mad and it makes things worse. Right. But then what happens? That build-up starts again.
Right.
And then I'm like, why does my life feel like it's on repeat with every person? Oh, because I don't know how to talk about anything that bothers me.
Right. And what does that teach the other person? That you are not open to communicating. You're not genuine about the way that you express the things that you feel. And that any conflict you have is going to be of high magnitude. Yeah. Right? So that teaches the other person, hey, I can't talk to you. Because anything we talk about, even if it's little, like the little thing you hypothetically would have gotten upset with me about, right? It was probably just like something that got under your skin. Now it's like, yeah, but that wasn't a really huge deal. But like if we have something like that again, now the way that you're going to react to it is by flipping out. Yeah.
It's like, it becomes your norm.
And exactly. And like, and it's not the way that it really is. No. Right. So like complicated.
Super complicated.
Yeah. So, like, how do we fix that? Like you said, start with yourself, right? Yeah. Like, what is it that you want to get out of the conversation? How do you want to convey yourself? All of that's important. But how do we make this, like, the normal thing, right? Rather than it being normal for people to suck at talking to each other. It's just, like, this accepted norm that is so frustrating.
Well, this could just be biased because I'm an emotion-based therapist. Yeah. But I mean, emotions are everything, right? Yeah. So, like, I love to give, like, multiple examples in my own life because I'm always trying to be aware of, like, what am I feeling? Yeah. And this happened like a few weeks ago. Like me and my man I couldn't figure it out. I was like, I have no idea why something activated. It makes me so upset.
Yeah.
I don't know how to talk about it yet because I haven't figured it out.
Right.
Right. But every time I get excited to tell him something, I'm like, hey, I got this. He would say something, and I'm like, why am I so? I'm irritated.
Yeah.
I'm irritated. Because this becomes this theme, but
Yeah.
I didn't know how to talk about it.
Oh.
My first step was like, okay, I'm very aware that I have this pattern with him, that
Right.
I do something and I know my emotion is everything.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, I know I'm irritated.
Yeah.
Clearly, I don't want to stay in irritation every time we have this little thing happen. This happens and then this happens. We're
Yeah.
always in this dance with people, right? We have to figure out I always say figure out your dance with somebody. Every time one thing happens, another thing happens. We're in this negative dance. How do we get out of this dance? And I couldn't figure it out. And I'm like, but I would get this attitude. And I would just shut down.
Right.
Because that's my default. I'm just like, now I'm upset. I'm irritated. I don't even want to talk to you. So now I'm shut down. Unfair to him, right?
Yeah,
He's
right.
like, what happened?
Yeah.
You were in a good mood. And one thing happened. Like, I was kidding. I was this. So then it happened. And I was like, that's it.
Yeah.
And so what was the example? Oh, I bought a whole bunch of groceries.
Yeah.
And we're on FaceTime. I'm like, babe, I bought all this stuff at the grocery store for only X amount of money.
Yeah.
I was so excited.
Right. Yeah. Who wouldn't be?
Yeah, I know that's what, $70. Look at how much food I got. And we're on FaceTime. And the first thing he said was, hey, you're going to throw away that stuff at the top of the fridge, right? And I was like, that's it.
Yeah.
Whatever that is this.
Is
like,
what, yeah.
I'm so irritated at him right now.
Right.
When granted, I knew, like,
Yeah.
on some level, like, when this is the hard part I think people don't go to, which
Yeah.
I know we're aware of people, but I was like, I know his intention wasn't to criticize me, to make me mad, to
Right.
disturb my day. He was just in a normal conversation with me on FaceTime. Like,
Right.
he just said something back to me.
Yeah.
Like, groceries, like, babe, AKA, hey, the food up top
Yeah.
is disgusting. We've had
Right.
it for a week.
Yeah.
Throw that out so the fridge doesn't smell, is what
Right.
I knew he meant.
Exactly.
But in the moment, I'm like,
I was excited about this.
yes.
And you reduced it
Right.
by just throwing in normal conversation, right?
So in that moment, I was like, I can't. This is another part. Which,
Yeah.
See, this is why I say we can go on for days. I knew if I bring this up in this moment, even with them kind of aware of what I'm upset about,
Yeah.
I'm too upset about it,
Right.
to not be an ass right now.
Right.
I'm going to be like, you're so critical. What's wrong
Yeah.
with you? You
Right.
always, and he's going to be like, that's not my, he's going to,
Exactly.
like, I'm going to attack him.
Right.
So I'm very aware with my anger. Like, I have to be cautious and calm myself down. So I was like, hey, nothing. Like, I'll just talk to you later. And he's
Right.
like, what happened? I'm like, nothing. Like,
That's
we'll
fine.
figure out another time.
Right.
Like, the next day we're on the couch and I always, like, will tell people I like to communicate when I'm in, you should communicate when you're calmer.
Right.
So you can feel understood.
Right.
Like, I want you to hear what actually upset me, not me
Yeah.
yelling at you.
Right, exactly.
Right? Because we're going to get nowhere. So then, I don't know if it was a day or two later, we're like casually on the couch watching TV and we're like both in good moods. And I was like, hey, babe. He was like, what? I'm like, the other day, I think we need to talk about something. He's
Yeah.
like, and luckily he's just open and
Yeah.
receptive to like, yeah, we talk about everything. So that's great, which a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
And I was like, I figured out what upsets me about you. And he's like, okay, cool. Tell me about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, the other day when I gave him the example and I was like, I think I get really upset when I'm excited and I'm
Yeah.
trying to I feel like I'm trying to share my excitement of like something cool.
Right.
And our pattern is every time I'm excited, you kind of hit me back with something like
Neutral.
negative.
Yeah.
Or like, let me tell you what to do.
Yeah.
And I know that's not your intention.
Right.
Which that's an important thing. I know your intention's not that, but
Yeah.
how I'm perceiving it is like, you're not sharing the experience with me. You're going to tell me what's wrong with it.
Right.
And now you're knocking off my high horse. So like, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, why did I even, that's my voice in my head. Why did I even tell him how many groceries?
Exactly.
Because he obviously doesn't, I'm making up he doesn't care.
Right.
He's like, no, I thought that was awesome. But he's like, I didn't realize I was doing that.
Right.
And then of course he started telling me why he thinks he's like, I think I'm just I look for the negative to begin with because of his own stuff, whatever.
Sure, right.
But now it's been so cool to watch him be like, cool, I know what I need from you
Right.
now. So now when I'm excited, he's like, hey,
That's awesome.
That's awesome. You got a whole bunch of groceries for like $70. We're gonna have food for a week. Hey babe, don't forget to throw this stuff. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, thanks for
Thank
reminding
you.
me.
Right. Yeah.
But it's
Share in
that,
that.
It's that kind of little communication that's
Yes.
like big because that
Right.
seemed so little.
Yeah.
That took months of my work.
Right.
To be like,
yeah.
the irritation, the buildup, I had to figure it out. Then I had to figure out how to talk to you about it without being an asshole to you.
Right, yeah.
And then it is my job to do because I
Yeah.
can't expect you to change your behavior.
Right.
If I'm not telling you.
Exactly.
And all of that is like such an example
yeah.
that took a lot of work. And when
Yeah.
you say it out loud, it's like, my clients will be like, it sounds so simple. I'm like, it sounds simple.
It sounds simple, yeah.
That
the solution is simple, but the
Yeah.
work to get to that point is not.
Yeah. I was like, I'm perishing trying to figure this
Yeah.
out, but I have to, because I don't want to be mad at my man every time he says something to me.
Right, exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
So
Right.
that's like the basics of what I think you're even talking about is where do you start?
Yeah.
Figuring out yourself.
Yeah, right.
And how do I say it to somebody
Yeah.
in a kind way without it being attacky, jabby,
Yeah.
aggressive,
Yeah.
mean, demanding.
Or unfair to yourself and like withholding it. Because that's like, I think, you know, we're both kind of similar in that sense. Like I have all those voices too, right? Like, well, if you share this, then this person's probably not going to respond the way you want to. So like, just let it
Don't even
go.
bother.
Don't even bother. And then it builds up and then you're like, I'm so angry at you because I feel like you won't be receptive. But that's all here, right? Like,
And
I
they
don't
might
know
not,
that, and they might
but-
not. Like, I can give you countless examples of how things in my head have not gone that way.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm surprised.
Yeah.
You know?
Blindsided. Wow, that went better than expected.
Yeah, that went great. And that feels good when it happens that way, but
Can you give me
you
like
know?
like since I just gave you a concrete example of something with me, do you have any kind of example that you can give of something you might have struggled with, whether it went good or bad?
yeah. I mean, honestly, the biggest one, and I think I've told you about this, is like when I was pregnant with Sunday, my baby. It was really hard for me to share that with my mom.
Oh, yeah.
You remember? And because I thought in my mind that
You made up.
I made up, this was completely falsified, that talking to my parents about this, because I already have my older kids, that it was going to be like, oh, are you sure you can handle that? Like, that's a lot. Like, you don't have support.
Doubting you.
Yeah, doubting. Like, you know, when I've overcome a lot, and I feel very strongly about that, but it took a lot. Like, I had to tell, you know, my husband, like, I need you there with me, like, when I call them, because I need support. Like, what if it's disappointment, or what if they are not as surprised and happy and excited as I am? Like, you know, and that's like a big thing,
Well,
right?
see, and then in that example, you knew what you needed.
Yeah.
That I'm going to do this hard thing.
Right.
And I'm going to talk to my parents, even though it might go poorly.
Right.
But I'm also going to accept my emotion.
Right.
When or if it happens.
Yeah.
And what I know I need, whether it goes good or bad, is, hey, my husband,
Yeah.
can you just be here? Because I'm going to do the hard thing.
Yeah.
And if I'm disappointed, I have
can-
you
yeah.
and I can handle it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and that was hard. So I got the physical, like, instrumental support,
Yeah.
right, from him being there. And it turned out great. Like, it was
Yeah.
nothing like my fears. Which, you know, I mean, I guess we're grounded in some kind of reality or experiences that
or
I've
history,
had. But that's an example of like a pleasant surprise where you can't make an assumption about the other person's reaction, right? Like that, and that's a very difficult thing to share because it's such a high level of excitement and you want them to feel that and you want to communicate the message, but also like the emotion, right? And when the other person is like closed off or not able to share in that, it feels invalidating and like defeating, right? So yeah, I mean that's a very concrete example of like something with that I can think of, you know, obviously in my relationship also. I can think of just like small frustrations that I'm like, he doesn't see this as a big deal.
Yeah.
But it is a mountain to me.
Yeah, which is
You know?
which is relationships 101, right?
Yeah.
We're two different people, and what I care about, like this,
Yeah.
you're like, I
That's-
don't give a shit about.
exactly.
And you can't make a person care that much like you
Right.
do.
Yeah. So, you know, that those things are important. I feel like you need to communicate with somebody like, I know that this is of no consequence to you,
Yeah.
but it feels like my world is crumbling because of this.
Yeah.
So I need you to either hear me and not invalidate me by saying, "Babe,
It's not a
that's
big deal."
not a big deal. Like, we will figure
My
it out.
God, it is a big deal.
And to me, I'm like, that makes me feel like ass.
Yeah.
Because my entire day has been consumed with this worry and anxiety and upset and overwhelmed.
Kev, you're being dramatic.
Yeah. And I know there's a solution, but the solution that I need right now is for you to be like, that sucks.
I think
so
that
bad.
we should normalize that saying.
Yeah.
Every time somebody expresses an extreme emotion, just
Yeah.
this sucks. This sucks.
Because you know what? You telling me that is like, heck yeah, that sucked. Thank you for seeing me.
Thank you for seeing me and for being with
Exactly.
me and not trying to be like, it's either not a big deal.
Right.
It's
We'll
not that
fix
big,
it. We'll figure it out.
Let me try to solve it for you.
Yeah, I don't want that.
Yeah.
I know that I have it handled because I survived the day.
Yeah.
But me sharing it with you is because it's consequential to me.
Yeah.
You know, and like I fight some of the same battles every single day as everyone does. The same battles at work, the same battles in school, the same battles as a parent in a relationship. Like, but it's these like small things that you do repeatedly all day that get under your skin that you need to talk to somebody about.
Yeah.
And like to me, like my husband does a lot of work in tech and graphics, right? Like to me, like a little glitch in a program is like, okay,
Yeah.
like
What's the big deal?
what? Yeah, like you'll get it figured out, you know? But to someone who has been dealing with that glitch for 8 hours, it makes you want to rip your hair out. And like I'm trying to see that where like me having the same fight with my toddler 158 times a day to him dealing with it 2 times is like, this is a hump. We'll get past this phase. And I'm like,
or
I don't see
or
it that
whatever.
way.
It's just the baby. It's just the kid.
It's something, right?
It's not even something that's serious.
Yeah, but you're like, it is because it has distracted everything else that I've had to do.
Right.
And now my to-do list is twice as long.
Right.
You know, like I think we need to be able to like see each other also and not just be like, well, this is my experience and that's your experience and they are separated. Like I can't understand you if I can't say like, why did your excitement not being shared bother you so badly?
Yeah.
You know?
Right, because it's one of those, if you give that example of what I told you, it's like I felt alone in my excitement. Like you don't care about all this cool stuff. So then I don't want to have to go back to saying, which would be a voice in my head, like, well, the next time something's exciting, keep it to yourself. Don't share it with him because he doesn't care.
Right.
And the next thing you know, I'm
what does
lonely
he care
every
about?
time I'm excited.
Exactly.
Because I'm like, well, he's not going to care. Oh, remember that one time you told him?
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't tell him, it bothers me. It will keep happening.
Exactly.
And then I will go down that pits of hell of like, yep, lonely in my excitement because I'm going to blame him.
With the one person that you should be able to share that with. Right. So, like, it can be so isolating. And, like, it's such, like, I think that people who go into, like, marriage therapy and, like, relationship therapy and just, like, one-on-one even, when we say, like, you need to communicate better. Like, I suck at literally every single person
Everybody
says
sucks.
that. Every single person says, I need to work on communicating better.
All of us.
We all do.
Oh, it's like a never-ending practice.
Yeah, and it's because it's so complex. It's not just like, state your feelings, period. Step B, you know?
Yeah.
Why do you feel this way?
Yeah.
No, like, you really have to, like, take a better look at, like, what am I afraid of happening?
Right.
You know, like, it doesn't have to be that way.
And what you're saying, like, afraid. I think a lot of times we're not having conversations because you're afraid of something, right?
Yeah.
Like even the reaction, the outcome, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'll hear this a lot, and I know this because all of us humans do it when we're trying to not communicate. It's, well, Alessia, you don't get it because I know how my partner, I know how this person is. I know. So then that becomes more, okay, well, that doesn't mean you don't communicate. Right?
Yeah.
I could have said, hey, I know my man. I know every time I'm excited, I know he's going to treat me.
Yeah.
He's going to say something critical.
Right.
And so there's no point. So what's the point of communicating with him?
Right.
Well, have you told him, hey, this is why?
Yeah.
And this is a whole nother thing. And then there's a point of, if you communicate that, he could tell me, yeah, Leslie, guess what? I never really give a shit when you're excited.
Right.
And then that's still back on me, like, oh, well, I'm now choosing to be with somebody who literally told me to my face that he doesn't give a shit.
Right.
Which most relationships, if you're in a good one, like there's going to be some empathy, like I could care.
Yeah,
maybe certain topics are different. So,
Yeah.
But that's the thing, you're scared of, like,
Right.
no, I'm going to do it. I know what it's going to be. I know it's going to be. I know it's going to be.
Yeah.
But you haven't tried something to say, hey, let me explain to you.
Yeah.
What I'm learning about me when that happens.
Right.
Because now it's about you.
Right. It's not an attack.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah, and, I think also you don't have to be interested in the same things to have good conversation.
Right.
Which is, like, a really hard thing for, like, so many people to grasp. Like, I have nothing in common with friend. Like, why are we even friends? Well, it goes beyond that. It goes, are they supportive? Are they helpful? Do they pretend to be interested in the things that you like to make conversation, Like, I can tell you personally, I have many friends who I am so different from.
Yeah.
We don't like the same music. We don't like the same books. We don't even watch the same movies. Like, so what is there to talk about?
Right. I mean, we're super different.
Yeah.
We're like opposites.
Opposites. Yeah. But like, it's just, you can have like heart to heart. I hate to use the word intellectual, but like, mindful conversations.
Also vulnerable.
Yeah.
I mean, because I would say that's it is why you connect with people the most. Like, in-depth, vulnerable, hard conversations.
Right.
Which is the whole point of this podcast, too.
Yeah.
Like, the hard stuff. me and you could have nothing in common, which we do have stuff in common.
Yeah.
But, like, we're so opposite personalities.
Right.
We are totally different introversion, extroversion ratios and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, like, I know you're a genuine soul. I'm a genuine soul. We know we have similar morals, values, but how many times have I come to you like, hey, I'm sad and I'm going through shit.
Right.
And you're like, oh my God, tell me about it.
Yeah.
Right? And you're not trying to fix my problem.
No.
You're not trying to give me advice. You're just like, we use that lingo. And I'm like, oh,
right.
This is a relationship. There's a give and take.
Yeah.
And we're communicating that.
Right.
That doesn't mean I have to be like, me and Gabby have so many similarities.
Yeah, right. No. And also, like, I don't need to understand what you are going through.
Right.
And I don't need to overshadow by, oh yeah, I totally get it because I went through something similar. Mm-hmm. That is extremely unhelpful.
Yeah.
Like if someone will listen and give feedback and then say, you know what, I don't know exactly where you're coming from, but I can tell you that like this reminds me of a feeling that I had.
Yeah.
And what I did for that may not help you, but.
Yeah.
Because I hate when you're saying like, oh, I'm having this issue with my mom or my boyfriend or whatever. And then people are like, yeah, same. Yeah. And you're like, but it's not. And that invalidates the way that I feel. Like you don't have to get me. Yeah. Just be like, yeah, I can't even imagine what that is like.
That sentence. Like,
I can't even
imagine.
Yeah. And like that makes me feel for you.
Yeah.
Because I want to be excited for you, but I know this is hard or whatever, And like that, I think people need to be able to like knock themselves down a peg and be like, you and what you're telling me is more important than how I feel about it.
Yeah. You just took my story and so you could talk about yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like people do that.
All the time.
All the time. And it makes me like, there are people that I can think of that I'm like, this is why I don't share the hard stuff with you.
Yeah. Which I think I will give people the benefit of the doubt of people.
They don't know how to be supportive.
They don't. I always take and I interpret when people do it. It doesn't negate that it frustrates me.
Yeah. Right.
It annoys me.
Yeah.
But I also try to have leeway. Like, I believe this person is trying to connect.
Yeah.
And I believe this person's trying to relate to me so that they don't maybe know how to connect or keep conversation going.
Sure,
so they feel like the only way I can actually be there for this person is to say, yeah, I've been through something similar. And unless it's been like, which that's what support groups are good for, right? If you've actually been through the exact same like situation, cool. But if it's not, it's very like, okay, well now I'm going to have to sit here and listen to your story and my story is just not important.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And then you're going to tell me something that's probably very much different than what I went through.
Exactly.
So now I'm just sitting here. So I do try to give people the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
That's, again, if it's a person you want in your life to be close with, then it would be like, okay, how do I tell this person, like,
good for you.
I get it, but that's not the way I need supported.
Yeah, right.
Like when I come to you with a problem, sometimes you make it about you and it kind of invalidates what I'm saying. Yeah. And I don't feel heard. Right. And that's a good friendship. Like, shoot, I wasn't trying to do that.
Yeah.
But a lot of times the person on the other side is not receptive to
me. Or you don't have that, like, secure relationship with that person where you feel comfortable with that. And you're just like, next time I'll just go to somebody else.
Right.
So.
And I think one of the things we keep bringing back, which I hear a lot and I get, because obviously in what we do, people want solutions.
Yeah.
And I'm not a solution-based therapist.
Same.
Not that I don't believe in. I think there are some things that are solutions. Like, right, there is a solution. If you're like, hey, I'm very disorganized. Let's get a calendar. Let's be solution focused. Sure. That's a solution. Cool.
Yeah.
We can figure out why you're disorganized, what causes that. There's more in-depth stuff for sure. But the basics is there is a solution to some stuff.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the stuff we're talking about, I am always saying A plus B does not equal C. And that's the hard thing about a therapeutic process, a self-awareness process, an emotional process is we want quick fixes because we don't want to feel bad, negative emotions, sad, frustrated, annoyed, pissed off, anger. Right. So we're like, what can I do to get out of this?
Yeah.
What's the solution just to not feel this again?
Right.
Instead of saying, I can accept that these emotions are going to come up.
Yeah.
What do I need for the emotion? Which is what you had said earlier. Like, hey, I have a lot of shit going on. I'm overwhelmed. I'm frustrated. Can I vent to you?
Yeah.
And I told one of my clients that a few weeks ago. I'm like, the solution is actually that.
Yeah.
The solution to all of human emotions and problems psychologically
just
are
to, like, put it somewhere.
What do I need when I'm feeling this?
Right.
So that I get an interaction that helps me move through it more quickly.
Right.
So if I'm telling my partner or my friend, hey, this is going on, and they're giving me advice, and I'm like, I didn't want your advice because I'm aware that there's not a solution to, hey, my boyfriend and me got in this huge fight and like we're just going to be in it for a while. Like, hey, I don't want your advice. I know I could go talk to him. I know I could say this to him. I know I could look at it from a different perspective. I'm very aware of that.
Yeah.
But now I'm even more annoyed that you think I don't know that.
Right, exactly, yeah.
So it's like, hey, I know, guys, like relationships are hard and like I feel you because my relationship can get hard and that sucks. I'm like,
thank you.
Instant, like that relief feeling with any negative emotion is like so validating. Like you're like, that was the solution. Thank you so much. But people don't want to accept that the solution is an interaction.
Right.
But figuring out that interaction's hard.
Yeah. No, it is. And also just like that discomfort with, like you said, negative emotion, right? Like I think it like that was something I always struggled with, and like I'm a sweep it under the rug kind of person by nature, right? But like I've learned, like with little kids with a tantrum, like what do parents want to do? No, stop yelling. We're in a store.
Yeah.
You know, that's not the way to teach a kid that like it's okay to be mad that I said no about a toy. Like you're gonna scream. Let's go outside and scream.
Yeah. And I get that you're mad.
Yeah, I'm like that's okay. Like you're still not gonna get it.
Yeah.
And that's very hard to sit with. Like someone else who's dysregulated or someone else who you're like, I want to fix your feelings. Like you know. You can't.
You can't fix a feeling. But that's the stereotypic, like, old school stuff, which eventually I'm sure me and you will get into in this podcast of people not knowing how to feel emotion. So it's like, I always say the stereotypic, like, especially with kids, right? It's like, old school generation is like, don't be sad. There's nothing to be sad about. Be happy. Come on, be happy. We're at Disney. Be happy. And the kid's throwing a tantrum. You're like, maybe just don't feel that. Just be happy. Just Why would you be upset? Why? We're at Disney.
You would never say that to an adult, though. You would never. If you saw a grown-up, and like I think about this a lot, if you saw a grown-up or an adult at Disney having a hard time, maybe it's that they've been standing in lines all day, they wore the wrong clothes, like, you know, I don't know, they got splashed by a ride and they didn't want their clothes to get wet, you know, they spent a lot of money on whatever and it got lost. Like, you would never tell a grown-up in the same experience, like, it's okay, like, I know you're tired, just like buckle up. Like, we're at Disney, have a great time. You know, like, and I think about that a lot. Like, I try to talk to children the way that I would talk to an adult. Granted, boundaries are different with kids.
Right.
But, you know, like, now that I understand that, you have to think about, like, would you ever tell a kid, or would you ever tell a grown-up, like, listen, you know, you dropped your ice cream, like, just keep walking.
Yeah.
You would never say that.
Yeah.
You know, like, of course a kid is going to freak out when their ice cream is on the floor and the ice cream place was 4 miles back that way. You're not going to walk back and get them another one. I would be upset about it too. You know, do we need to keep walking? Yes. Can you cry while you walk? Yes. You know? So it, like, I think that just, like, sitting with discomfort with other people's feelings too, like, you can't just always tiptoe around them. And, like, I struggle with that daily.
Yeah.
I do.
And there's that. I agree with you, and there's part of me that kind of has a disagreement.
Okay.
Which, yes, I agree in the sense of you're not going to talk to like adults and kids, people say different things to them, which is like, why am I telling my 3-year-old don't throw a tantrum, like just be happy, right? When an adult, if something you're throwing a fit, you're like, what's wrong, right? But there's also this like knowledge and notion of, okay, well, there's an example that I always give in like one of my sessions of like you'll hear family dynamics a lot of times, like, how are you sad? You have everything. Yeah. Like, you have a husband, you have kids, you're married. Like, what are you so sad about? Yeah. And it's like, that's invalidating, because then people learn, like, oh, I shouldn't be sad. Right. Because I have all these things and people see my life this way. Yeah. I shouldn't be sad. So people aren't asking, hey, you seem to have a great life, but obviously, like, you're sad. Like, what's going on? Is it like, and a lot of people will come in with that lingo, or my friends, for example, they're like, yeah, I should be, which is a voice. Like, I should be happy. I have all this stuff, but why am I not? Right. But people aren't asking, like, why are you not sometimes? Because we don't have, again, the communication, the language for adults, but it is a different way than for, we do speak to adults different than kids, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's hard because, like, with younger people, even younger adults and teenagers, not just little kids, but you're teaching lessons in everything. Whereas adults, like, you should have a general, like, framework for, like, these are the things that I can be happy about, and these are the times when I can't express certain feelings, you know, and people who have less than you may not understand how that's not fulfilling enough, you know, and I certainly, like, you know, Michael, my husband, he practices gratitude every day, and, like, I struggle with that. I've never been a person who has been able to sit down and jot down all the things I'm thankful for. And because it's hard for me to communicate, like, I know I have all these wonderful things, but, like, even out of my own head to paper, it's hard to get those words out just right, to be like, yes, I'm thankful that I have a mess to clean up because my kid is healthy enough to make it. You know, like,
I'm going to turn this into something positive, even though I'm frustrated with it.
Right, you know, and, like, that is really hard. Yeah. But again, just, like, maybe learning the right language could be something that people can work on. Yeah. You know, but, like, how do you teach that? It's really hard, and it's life experience, and, like, you know, how jaded are you, and how poor are your experiences with other people, that it's like, why do I even care to try? Like, I'm just going to deal with it on my own. Yeah. So
I think a lot of times we're worried about what we're gonna feel, because we don't know it's an unknown. We all are scared of the unknown, right? So if I say this to you, what if you go off of me? Right. Well, I have to also accept that you might, and I can handle what I'm feeling. But most people are like, I don't even want to feel that, right? Because it's not normal. And I could go on and spill that, but it's not normal in your body, because in history you probably weren't allowed to feel it. So it's like, okay, that fear of that is so big that I'd rather just not even go there. Yeah. So then people aren't talking. Right. And so it's like, I'm just going to stay bottled up in this pits of hellhole. Right. And the next thing you know, I'm having all these issues in my life. Yeah. And I'm miserable. Right. So, but let's close it up, because we're coming to the end. Okay. And I feel like what I've taken from today is we all suck at communicating. Yeah. Yeah.
I agree. I think we all have a lot of work to do, but there's no solution sometimes. There's no one-size-fits-all answer. And I would love to hear some ideas, like, from other people, like, open up the conversation and just see, like, again, open up the conversation, right? Like, what are you missing when you're talking to someone that makes it so hard to do?
Yeah. And that's what I like, we're talking about this, because I would want feedback of, which I love when I have sessions and I have clients come in, because I'll challenge them with this stuff, and they always are like, no, Alessia, but here, like, this happened the other day, and this happened. See, I told you that this would happen. Yeah. But it's not about that. Right. There's so much more. So if we give examples, we can always break things down and figure things out. So take this, communication stings. We're all bad at it, but we're here to help with, it seems like, my general takeaway is learning the language and learning how to label your emotions or understand yourself, or, like, keys in communication. Right. That's not just heady. Yeah. So
we all have communication stuff.
And then come to us for the next episode to see what other stuff we talk about.
Yeah. Okay. See you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.
That went fast. I'm into it.
Yeah, I like it.